Tennessee Volunteers open today. South Carolina Gamecocks. It's a game I expect. Good competitive game that I'm predicting the Volunteers win because they make more great plays, both passing and throwing, than the Gamecocks, and they win the turnover battle. Expect it to be decided in the second half, and Volunteers just make more great plays than the Gamecocks, also winning the turnover battle, even though this is South Carolina. That's why. Expect the Gamecocks to keep the game close. It's a night game. Tennessee versus South Carolina. Missouri. This is in Rocky Top. The Volunteers make more great plays than the Missouri Tigers, and they win the turnover battle. Both reasons why I have the Volunteers winning, and also with it being in Rocky Top. I expect the Missouri Tigers are going to be really embarrassed after getting demolished by Alabama, so they'll come in versus Tennessee Volunteers that haven't become a great team, and they'll be able to hang around and keep the game close and watchable versus the Volunteers. Except they won't be able to beat the Volunteers because the Volunteers made more great plays. The Missouri Tigers is both for offense and defense and winning the turnover battle. And also the Volunteers do have the momentum of a 6 games winning streak, so that's why I expect them to that's an advantage. Well, currently they do have an advantage, and assuming they beat the Gamecocks, they'd have an advantage of a 7 games winning streak, and I'd expect them. It's going to be challenging to end. They play at the Georgia Bulldogs, and I have this as a loss because the Georgia Bulldogs, a great team, they make more great offensive plays and defensive plays than the Volunteers, and they also win the turnover battle, and the Georgia Bulldogs benefit from winning that turnover battle. And besides benefiting from winning, except this is a game where, even though it's on the road, again, the Tennessee Volunteers playing the Great Bull, I don't expect this to become the embarrassment that the 2019 game was. I expect that the Volunteers are going to be able to keep this game close, watchable, dramatic, and interesting, instead of it becoming the embarrassment that it was last year, which was for most of the game. And I know because I watched that game at DJ's dugout. So that's the loss. Kentucky Wildcats. They're going to defeat the Kentucky Wildcats. They make more great offensive plays, both running and throwing, and win the turnover battle. And Kentucky just really is not. They're not going to have the exactly what's needed to defeat the Volunteers in Rocky Top. Expect Kentucky. They've been made a decent team. I call it with Stoops, so I expect them to actually keep the game good and close, except they're not able to effectively. They keep on giving up so many big plays from the Volunteers, mainly their offense and also the Volunteers' defense making great plays, so that's just too much for the Kentucky Wildcats to overcome in Rocky Top to win. Alabama, I am picking this as it's in Rocky Top, and I watched that game last year where the Volunteers didn't finish. They didn't finish against the Alabama Crimson Tide, and the game was a lot closer. Was close for most of the game, which I didn't expect because it was in Alabama, and Tua Tagovailoa is a great quarterback, even though he didn't play for most of it. Still expected it to become an embarrassment, except it didn't. And so I expect the Volunteers, after showing that they can keep the game watchable and with a high amount of those returning starters, that they'll do better than just keeping the game watchable. They'll actually take the next step and actually win the game versus Alabama. It's in Rocky Top. They have most of their starters returning. They have momentum. Completely different team since they last played that game. Expect the Volunteers keep the game close, a close competitive game, and they win because they make great offensive plays. They make great plays for both offense and defense in both the first half and the second half. And they're going to have to make great plays, including on offense in the second half, including the fourth quarter, and expect the Volunteers, they'll be able to do that, which will make the difference between which will be a main reason why they win, because I recall they had it as a close game. They were leading in the fourth quarter 2015 in Alabama, except they weren't able to finish because their defense wasn't able to defend. So I expect this time the Volunteers are going to do better than that. They'll actually get the game. The game will be close in the fourth quarter. They'll be leading in the fourth quarter, and their defense will effectively defend when needed. Their offense will make great plays when needed, so they don't have like a narrow lead. So Alabama late in the game, like in the final 6-7 minutes, can take the lead. Doesn't mean they'll have to play defense in the final 6-7 minutes. They will, except they'll effectively defend that lead, and the offense is going to make great plays, both in the first half, second half, and they win the turnover battle. And I see that the starting quarterback for Alabama, he's an effective quarterback. He's Matt Jones, but he does not have that mobility that Tua Tagovailoa. I can't. That last name is a lot to pronounce, so I'm just going to say Tua. He doesn't have the mobility, the great mobility that Hurts has, or the quarterback that they were last using, which is Tua before he got injured. Currently now plays for the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins should be using. And he doesn't have them. I mean, he can effectively throw the football, except this is not. He's still going to have an experience, and I expect those growing pains to show. Where Garantano, he doesn't have that experience. This is his senior year, and this is his chance to make that big statement for the Volunteers, not just to make that big, but for him, Garantano, to make that, for him to have that signature win to show that he can be a great quarterback, with leading the Volunteers to a upset win over the Crimson Tide that no doubt are going to be top 10 team, I expect to be a top 5 team. And so I'm really, really hugely looking forward to this game against Alabama, the darn Crimson Tide. Including, again, the Volunteers, they make great offensive plays in the fourth quarter, which they need to beat Alabama, because the game's going to be close, and they need those great offensive plays in the fourth quarter to defeat the Crimson Tide, along with great defensive plays defending when needed. At Arkansas is going to be, I expect they to be, after the abysmal season last season, they're going to be an actual. Yep, Felipe Franks, I've seen him with Florida. He has talents, and the Razorbacks do have a new head coach, so I expect them to be a actual good team that it does win above 5 games. Wins above 5 games, they're competitive. They're a good team that has a winning record and isn't the doormat, the embarrassment, the jabroning that they were last year, 2019. So, and plus it's in Arkansas, so all reasons why I expect this. Arkansas is going to keep this game good, competitive, and close. Except the Volunteers with more experience, they're going to be able to are going to win the game because they successfully run the football, and they make more great plays on both offense and defense, including in the second half, to win this competitive, good, close game in Arkansas. Texas A&M, this is going to be a heavyweight, challenging game because they're typically usually a good or a great team, so I haven't beaten the Texas A&M Aggies. It's in Rocky Top, so that gives the Volunteers a slight advantage. And they make more great plays, more great offensive plays, including in the second half, which they're going to need because it's going to be a close, competitive game in the fourth quarter, and both the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And the defense defends when needed, so it's going to be a great, exciting, dramatic, close game. Also, the almost forgot, the Crimson Tide Volunteers game is going to be a competitive, great, exciting, dramatic, close game. That's what I'm saying. Auburn Tigers, I did have this as a win, except then I changed it as a loss, mainly because Volunteers have to go into Auburn, and even though the Crimson Tide is still going to be the heaviest of all the heavy lifting games besides Georgia and Auburn just seems like less of a. It's in Auburn. If it was in Rocky Top, I would be slightly more confident that the Volunteers could win. But since it's in Auburn, I changed this to a loss. I expect the Auburn Tigers are going to make more great plays than the Rocky Top Volunteers, the visiting Volunteers. And, they make more great plays than the visiting Volunteers. And even if the Volunteers are able to keep it close, again, the Auburn Tigers just make more great plays than the visiting Rocky Top Volunteers. And the game is a competitive, good, great, close, dramatic game. And the Auburn Tigers win the turnover battle, and they benefit from winning the turnover battle. And at Florida, this is going to be a game, again, where Garantano has a chance to make a statement, much like Dobbs had a chance to make a statement with that for a signature win when the Volunteers played the Florida Gators in Rocky Top in the 2016 season, which the Volunteers came back they had a great second half to defeat the damn Gators. So just like that, this is another game where Garantano has a chance to get that other signature win and show that he can be a.
So they know each other. There's the familiarity. But Terry Fair, former teammate of mine with the Detroit Lions, was talking about kind of said this guy.
Stop the because I want to hear about this.
Colorado State. He said he has NFL type talent, but he's had 3 ACL surgeries on the same knee. That lead knee, his left knee. He's a right-handed quarterback. So when defenses come, that's the leg that they're going to be the closest to, especially if they come falling on the ground. My concern is Colin Hill's mentality coming to this game, Kirk. I think they're going to have to get the ball out of his hands quick, get into the playmakers, so he's not back there holding that ball, Kirk. The man had 3 ACL surgeries on the same knee, Herbie.
Yeah, and he's going up against a team and a program, and Jeremy Pruitt, that they're building the foundation over these last couple of years through recruiting and quite honestly, through success. This is a team, you can look at their schedule and say, look who they played. I don't care. They won their last 6 games. They won 7 of their last 8. Their fan base is excited. These players are really buying into his philosophies. So I think this is a dangerous matchup for South Carolina because of the confidence in his team. You got a veteran quarterback and Jared Garantano. So I'd like to see in that matchup, and I'll tell you, David, I'm excited to see Mathis as well. I really want to see Zamir White, their new back. Georgia, you think of Georgia, you think of running back. So White kind of gets the baton handed to him. And also, they're going up against Sam Pittman, who was in that locker room last year, and he's trying to preach physicality. In fact, he brought a strength coach, Jamil Walker, over from Georgia to try to get this team to become more physical. They got Felipe Franks. So I don't think that's just a walk in the park for Georgia against Felipe Franks and that Arkansas offense.
That Georgia defense is still going to be stifling. They don't really have necessarily the huge stars, but they are so complete and so deep. Also interested to watch Texas A&M and who they find.
Well, that's another reason the Georgia Bulldogs are such a complete team. So even though they don't have those great stars that they had of past seasons, including Todd Gurley, a great running back, they still have a complete team, which is why I expect the Georgia Bulldogs at home are going to beat the Tennessee Volunteers in an actual competitive, good, close, competitive, dramatic game. Volunteers are able to win in the fourth quarter. They're able to win in the. Volunteers are able to win the fourth quarter. I'll call that a great, dramatic, competitive, close game.
At some point, you have to see that ball going. It's going to go 10 yards. You're allowed to
Throws down and slam dunk. That's what you think. Dunk contest. What we got here? What you gonna get him?
I'll give him an 8.5.
8.5 on an 8-foot goal with the little windmill, little catch. That wasn't quite Vince Carter that you saw all day yesterday, but he dunk it over. You know what I mean? Chuba Hubbard. Now let's hit Chuba Hubbard. Look at this. Look at this. These are called hype guys.
Yeah.
Hype guys. This is what happens.
He's
on the sidelines.
The new version of Flip.
He has to run out of energy at some point, but he was doing his job. Chuba, you know what this is called, Reese? It's called social distance.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what that's called. Hey, come get some. Let me get some. Let me get some of that. Yeah, that up. Nope.
Good game, good game.
You know why?
No. I bet.
Chuba got held under 100 yards.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Broke that streak. That's it. You can get it going. Herman's going to join.
Well, I hate the Hurricanes. I do, except I see they do have gorgeous cheerleaders. I cannot deny that, including the one on the right and the left of Sebastian. Can't deny that. Wearing. Anyways, back to the picks.
And how about the state of Mississippi and the head coaches everywhere? Thought it was enough with Leach and Lane. Now there's a guy who we'll just call him Coach Pride.
Hey, it's done. I think the English stride has happened. Start calling me Coach Brown from now on.
Deion Sanders taking over at Jackson State. We'll talk about that. Coca-Cola bringing fans together this season, checking in on our virtual.
Sebastian has his own dorm. Oh, yeah, I recall that name. Antonio Cromartie, I recall him playing for, if I recall, at the Jets. That's why I recognize that name. Mainly. Anyways, the Florida Gators game, that must be an error by me about at Florida, because I think I recall this being last year being at Florida, so I'd have to look at it again, but I don't doubt at all that it's in Rocky Top, because 2016 was Rocky Top, then goes Florida, 2017, back to Rocky Top, 2018, Florida, 2019, so it'd be back to Rocky Top in 2020. So obviously that was a factual error by me that I have it as at Florida. Anyways, the Florida Gators game, Garantano, he's going to get a signature win. Volunteers are going to make a statement against the damn Gators. They're going to play a full great game. They were going to successfully run the football against the Gators. They'll win the turnover battle. They'll benefit from winning the turnover battle because of scoring points off of those turnovers. And they'll also, this is going to be a competitive, dramatic, close, exciting, great game. A close, competitive, exciting, great game that the Volunteers win because they make more great plays than the Gators in both the first half and the second half, including for their offense, not just for the defense, but also for their offense. Offense, the first half, great plays. Offense in the second half, great plays. Their defense defends when needed. And I'm going to be really damn happy to be seeing the Volunteers defeat the Gators, because that was just miserable last year when the Volunteers, they showed fight, except they weren't able to get the ball into the end zone multiple times, if anything at all. I'd have to watch that game to see if they got it in the end zone at all, if any. Volunteers are just a completely different team, so I'm really excited to see the Volunteers defeat the Gators in Rocky Top, and Garantano's senior year, him getting a signature win. And also the Gators, I'd be really damn happy if the Gators defense or any of the Gators players are just throwing their helmets on the sidelines, because I've become hating the Gators for a high amount of time. For a high amount of time, including even before the Tebow Gators were demolishing the Volunteers, because the Florida Gators ended up stealing out a win against the Volunteers in 2000, and that was the Palmer Gators, 2000, and that was all because there was no instant replay. So obviously that was an incomplete pass, except without instant replay, there was no instant replay to overturn that. So I've already just really hated them since then. I've hugely hated them when the Tebow Gators started demolishing the Volunteers. And so I'm not going to be unhappy at all if the Gators on the sideline, Gators players on the sidelines are throwing their helmets on the ground in frustration.
$5. You could upgrade to the smart
Volunteers win that.
conquest. Or you could upgrade to all this. 2 crunchy tacos and a medium drink.
The
Players of the $5
well,
grande stacker box.
show this promo first.
Saturday Night Football presents a rivalry renewed.
Another chapter of this great rivalry.
Oh, that's a great promo. Anyways, I got the Volunteers winning this competitive, great, close, exciting game, defeating the damn Gators. The Gators are going to be really, it's going to be a long trip for the Gators back to Gainesville, the swamp, after they lose to the Rocky Top, losing Rocky Top to the Tennessee Volunteers. And the Volunteers, they finish 8-2 in second place in the SEC East, which is a great season because it's 10 games season, and they've won 8 of their 10 games. That's 80%, and finishing in second place. I'd be really happy if they prove me wrong and end up winning 9 of 10 games, even though that's going to require heavy lifting, including for the fact that they would have to win either in Auburn against a pretty good or maybe great Auburn Tigers team, or they'd have to win in Georgia against a great Georgia Bulldogs team, and they would also have to... Of the other heavy lifting, they would also have to, or the other biggest heavy lifting, they would have to defeat the heavyweight Crimson Tide in Rocky Top. Any of those 3 games are all... Alabama is the heaviest of the heavyweight games. The Georgia is a pretty close second, maybe slightly ahead, maybe just tied just for the fact that Georgia's a great team and it's in Georgia, so that could be just as equally as heavyweight. And Auburn, it's still a heavyweight because it's in Auburn, and Auburn's either going to be a pretty good or a great team. So the Volunteers would have to win 2 of those 3 heavyweight challenging games, and not just the other ones that are still going to be not cakewalks, but more of the winnable range, or challenging except still winnable. So I'd be really damn happy if the Volunteers obviously also proved me wrong and they were better than 8-2. They finished winning 9 of 10, or I don't not see them going 10-0 because they'd have to have a great season. That's it. Not saying it can't happen, except a lot of stuff would have to go their way, and a lot of stuff would have to go their way. Not saying it can't happen, except if it does, I'd be really damn happy. So that's when I have the Volunteers finishing second place, SEC East 8-2, winning 8 of those 10 games that I listed, all of them SEC games. And the Georgia Bulldogs, I expect, are going to win the SEC East, winning either with a 10-0 record or a 9-1 record. And then if they do lose to the Volunteers for that if they do lose to the Volunteers, it won't really hurt them, mainly because the fact that they finished with a better record than the Rocky Top Volunteers.
Available real-time all-wheel drive with intelligent control system. Contact your Honda dealer to learn more or shop online.
I have to replace batteries because he doesn't sing.
Is brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Game day isn't complete without your favorite food and an ice-cold Coke Zero Sugar. Together tastes better.
One excited Seminoles fan before Sebastian. Hurricanes mascot.
He's not looking to go and find shelter in a storm. He's ready for those Seminoles to come rolling in. The SEC starting today. Herb Edwards is going to join us a little bit later on to talk about the return of the Pac-12. Heather Dinich will be along.
This is my Volunteers cap that I got on Fanatics. It shows Smokey in the front, a big Tennessee logo, the T logo. Then the back, it also has Smokey with orange surrounding him, black. And because this was on Fanatics and it cost extra and it was worth it, I ended up getting my first name. That's my first name on this cap, which is, it's the right side of this cap. It's my first name on the right side of this cap. Go Rocky Top Volunteers. Finish either in second place or better than second place, and make statements this year, this season, including against the Crimson Tide, if they can, which I believe they can, the Gators, and if they're play really damn great, either the Auburn Tigers or Georgia Bulldogs. Those damn Georgia Bulldogs.
How hot you've been in picking winners this year. You've been burning it up, man.
Go Rocky Top Volunteers.
When this hammer comes out, magic happens. And I've been 4-2, obviously, and that's much better than
That's Thor's hammer. That's Mjolnir.
you get it. So I feel very good.
The Thor hammer, Mjolnir.
I don't want to start counting my wins before I can continue this thing. I know the Bears' big brain is a problem, but college gambling is a lot of fun. You have no idea what's going to happen, but I maintain this heater through the rest of the season. You can go ahead and book it, baby.
Show me what I'm booking. What am I booking today, Pat?
Well, I'll tell you what, I looked at Bears' big board there, and I hated everything about that top one. My first.
I was going to say, I think I'm going to get some grief for that.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you got to 6.5, by the way. The book that I'm looking at says 7.5, which is quite a different bet. But West Virginia plus 7.5 is knock number 1 against Oklahoma State. Let me tell you why. Last November, whenever Oklahoma State traveled to Morgantown, West Virginia, and played against West Virginia, they had a close game going into the fourth quarter, and Oklahoma State opened up a 10-point run, ended up winning by 7. They're both playing their best football. I think since then, the West Virginia Mountaineers have only gotten better. They got a guy named Letty Brown in the backfield, and to exact quote him, he said, "I love the fat boys." Him and the offensive line have become best friends. He put up 123 a couple weeks ago in like the first quarter against Eastern Kentucky. Chuba Hubbard, very different week last week. So this is not only a bet against Oklahoma State, this is a bet for West Virginia because they completely changed their game. I got it at plus 7.5. I love that one. Also, BYU. Just a few weeks ago, I thought they were potentially the best football team that has ever gone on to a football field. I love the Stormin' Mormons out there. Minus 14.5 against Troy, strictly because I don't know what a Troy is. Louisiana Lafayette. Levi Lewis, minus 12.5 over Georgia Southern, who's a kicking university. I like them all. Herbie, I think you're on my side. Is that accurate?
I am on your side. I'm all about BYU. They are physical at the line, probably as physical as anybody in the country at the line of scrimmage. I know it was Navy. They had practice. They had tackled. But I love this BYU team, Bear.
I think there was
Navy's not some scrub, really.
like 4-2 is better than 3-3, so I think that was around me as well.
It's like he was talking like they were playing Furman or Georgia or Appalachian State, etc.
The big upset win at Iowa State and came back and won, which shows a lot of moxie and a lot of results. I like that pick today with Louisiana laying that number. It's a good one. Be
Hey,
very
Vince, I
careful.
love dancing with the bear. No, I'm sorry, Reese. I just want to say I love dancing with the bear.
Yep.
But Coach Napier down there in Levi, and I think there was a moment where he cried after their first win. Whenever you have a team that's that tight and that good, and you got a quarterback who wears the number 1, which is the greatest number, and he's a lefty and he's athletic, they can pop that thing open at any given time. That's why I like it. I hate their Oklahoma State bet because I hammered them last week, and they're one of my losses of the last week.
I know you do.
But other
You'll
than that, I
lose.
like that we're on the same page.
I don't know. I love BYU too. Be very careful. I'm told that BYU might be down 12, 13 guys. Might have some problems in the secondary, maybe not. Be careful. Be careful with that one right there.
Be careful how big of a hammer you swing, okay?
You might just want one of those little top hammers. Puts in a little jackhammers.